Glow uses subtle design choices like sound, light, and points to reward the player. Will Hero provides you with so many weapons, routes, and enemies that you're encouraged to switch up your plans and make your own choice on how to move forward. And Pigeon is so enjoyably animated that the game is fun simply because it uses the 12 principles of animation. What's up everybody, and welcome to another Get Critical video where I talk about games from a game design perspective. However, this video is a little different. This is the first installation of the mobile series where we will discuss the great design choices you can find for free on your phone. And while there are many reasons why these games are good, we will be examining just a few key design choices that make these games stand out. The first of which are reward systems. When I say reward systems, I mean anything that positively reinforces player behavior. In Glow, you're timing the jumps of the small ball from circle to circle, and while you can jump towards your target without too much difficulty, the game rewards you for timing your jumps just right and hitting it perfectly. First, a perfect shot is accompanied by an increasing degree of celebration. Hitting the circle at all earns you a small pulse of color. Your first perfect shot spawns sparkles. Your second perfect shot creates a splash of rainbow color. And your third perfect shot adds rays of light and boosts you forward another 3 circles for free. At this point, you've got a good flow going, and this in itself is a good reward. Next, when you hit the ball off the perfect point, the sound seems off-key. Something about it isn't right, but when you hit the circle perfectly, while the sound is still there, it's now accompanied by a more pleasant as though this completes the sound. Now watch this. I slowed down the video so it would be more noticeable, but as you can see, the ball was nowhere near the perfect mark. Even so, the game will always reward you with a perfect shot when you bounce it off this sidebar. Why? Well, it's an intentional design choice that makes the player feel good for scoring what seems like a difficult trick shot, when as long as you hit the target nearly at all, you're guaranteed a perfect shot. And the game does a good job of hiding this from you by covering the shot in lots of lights and colors. Lastly, hitting a perfect shot earns you points that allow you to customize your game screen and all the colors you're capable of seeing. Alone, these small details might not be noticeable to the player and they have little influence on the game, but together they reinforce the good timing of your successful shots, steering you towards mastery of the game and a greater level of enjoyment. That's the power of reward systems. The second game I chose to look at today is Will Hero. In this game, you're a small cube-like hero smashing through orcs on your way to save your friends. What shines through about this game is the sheer amount of choice the player has when at its core, it's a game about one bouncing square smashing into other bouncing squares. The most notable way Will Hero encourages player choice is by giving you lots of weapons that have unique applications in the game. There are javelins, which can be thrown preemptively to attack foes from afar. There are spears, which can be used to strategically target large rows of enemies. There are bombs for players who like to physically attack the orcs, attaching a bomb to their backs and pushing them into an even larger crowd of orcs. Rockets, throwing stars, flails, swords, and even shuriken are all a part of your arsenal. And it doesn't stop there. Each of these weapons can be upgraded, causing them to either do more damage or change their in-game behavior, thus giving the player even more options on how to approach their enemies. Once you've collected your weapons, you can switch between them at will, and this not only benefits player preference, but different enemies will be easier to handle depending on your weapon choice. You even have super weapons, such as this giant sword of light, which can be used to deal large amounts of damage, or to strategically maneuver by slowing your descent during a jump. Already, the game is giving you an enormous means of combating the orcs, and once you get good enough to save the first few friendlies, such as the princess, the falcon, and the elf, you can use them in battle, changing out your helpers who all have unique assist attacks. And there's still a lot about this game that I haven't even mentioned, like explosive barrels that you can hit and push into large crowds of enemies, or these secret doors that you can go through, which are a little harder to maneuver, but if you get to the end you get a whole bunch of upgrades for your weapons. Will Hero manages to have an impressive amount of depth for a game with such a simple concept, and I credit that depth to the variety of choices that the player is given through the game's design. Now the last game I'm going to talk about for this video is Pigeon. This game is simply hilarious. I mean, how can you not love this thing? Look at him go. Fortnite dances and got nothing on this. So there's something called the 12 principles of animation, And as you enjoy these beautiful pigeon dances, I'll explain how many of them use the 12 principles beautifully in order to achieve just appealing animation and make the game fun to play. And this is one such really good animation. There's a lot going on at once. The wings are circling, the legs are bending, the head is turning, and this is called overlapping action, and it's one of the key principles of animation. In particular, this principle is really useful for replicating real-life motion. For example, if you want to stand up and walk out of the door, you're probably not going to do it as separate motions where you stand up first, then you turn, and then you start walking. More likely, you're going to turn as you stand up, and your foot will already be moving in the direction you want to go. This next animation is really good for showing squash and stretch, another of the 12 principles. You can see how the bird's body squashes down as it gets to the bottom of the ground and then stretches back up towards the height of its movement. And this principle is really good for defining both how heavy an object is and how rigid it is. For example, if you tried to do something like this to a chair, it wouldn't actually squash or stretch, it would just break. And so imagine for some reason this was like a stone bird. It would make a lot of sense if it couldn't really move, if it didn't squash and stretch, because it's supposed to be made out of stone. But you know, none of the things we're seeing are made out of what we think they're made out of. It's all just pictures. That's the whole reason that these principles are important, because they need to make us feel like it's made out of something that we see in the real world, or like it works however it's supposed to work in the imaginary world that we're looking at. So the next thing I want to touch on is arcs. Here you can see that both the head and the tail are moving in arc-like motions from side to side. And this is just one of the appealing motions that the 12 principles says are really good for animation. Now the last principle I want to talk about is timing. And for this one, we have to actually hear the music of the game. So notice how the movements of the animation, specifically the head of the pigeon bobbing back and forth and up and down, matches up almost perfectly with the music. As the animation goes on, the timing does get a little messed up, but that's just because I'm over here on the editing side messing up how the music is working, but you get the point. Timing is a really important animation principle because if you use it well, then that synchronization of movement and sound is really appealing to hear and to watch. And there you have it, the first video of the mobile series. I hope you all enjoyed. We talked a little bit about reward systems, player choice, and animation, and of course there is so much more depth that I want to get into, but we'll save that for a future video. As for this one, I really hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Don't forget to check out the description to learn more about these games, because they are really good games. Check me out on Twitter, all that good stuff, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks for coming and getting critical with me, CreatorRedA.